like a stupid or a worse question in our line of work, and by that I mean in journalism. Well, the Media Foundation for West Africa has graded questions asked by journalists at the presidential media Ecounter. Abdul Mumin of GTV, Kwesi Pratt and Bernard Avle were judged the best, whilst other journalists from Peace FM, ARC FM and Group Indio Media were judged the worst. We'll be interrogating this further, but first let's watch those journalists who were rated by the Media Foundation for West Africa as the best and the kind of question that they put to the president.
Ms. Abdul Mumin, I work with the Ghana Broadcasting Corporation. I take it that given the size of the economy, you couldn't have addressed all issues in your opening statements. And so I take it that the issues you raised are on your priority list. However, there's one issue I find not addressed in your address, which I think without it can bring every plan of yours to naught. It's this issue of security. In 2014, a young man known as Alema was alleged to have joined ISIS. In fact, his family confirmed that story. In 2016, a security expert revealed on GBC 24, in fact, he showed us evidence of how some members of ISIS were getting in touch with young Ghanaians. Just a couple of days ago, the Ghanaian police arrested some persons with 7 grenades. You didn't address that, Mr. President. How safe are Ghanaians under your watch? Thank you very much.
Your Excellency, Mr. President.
Yes.
I'd like to find out how you could have come to the conclusion that the Ministry of Trade has been cleared of the extortion allegations which were made, frivolous or otherwise, when indeed the Parliamentary Committee has just begun its work. What's the basis of your conviction that the Ministry has been cleared of the allegations?
Thank you very much, Mr. President. I remember the Vice President said, and I've said many times, that we are building a modern formal economy premised on national ID, digital address, and mobile payment interoperability. And in February 2017, in your State of the Nation address, you said, and I quote, "The process for a comprehensive national ID system and a property titling system will be completed this year." When we met here in July 2017, you repeated, "The national identification scheme will be working by the end of the year, as promised, and the digital address system will be functioning," end of quote. So, 2 weeks into January, what is the state of the national ID and the mobile payment interoperability system? Thank you.
So these, according to the Media Foundation for West Africa, are the best of questions. Now, what do they think are the worst questions? Here they are.
My name is Gordon Asaribidiako from the New Crusading Guide. Happy New Year, Mr. President. We are in the 25th year of the Fourth Republic. And 2012-2013, you led the MPP to the Supreme Court, the petition. I would like to find out whether the live coverage, the outcome and then the immediate consensus or the acceptance of the ruling is a major hallmark of the 25th anniversary of the Fourth Republic.
So please, I'm sorry, you have posed that question again.
Okay.
What I understand from you.
What I'm saying is that we are in the 25th year of the Fourth Republic. In 2012-2013, you and 2 others went to the Supreme Court to petition against the election. And then there was a live broadcast, the ruling came, and it immediately accepted it. I'd like to find out whether you deem that one, at least the 3, the petition, the live broadcast, and the acceptance, as one of the major hallmarks of the Fourth Republic. Please, are you clear now?
I'm clear.
Thank you.
Mr. President, my question is, something unprecedented happened in Ghana here. That is during your first year. That is the coming in of visitors, mostly presidents. Classical example was the Emir of Qatar, President Macron, and all those people coming in. In your view, Mr. President, what do you think accounted for their interest in coming into Ghana, especially in your first year?
Mr. President, there is this school of thought that believe that incumbency is disadvantaged. And I want to have your view on that. Thank you very much.
Thank you for the opportunity. And I want to commend the hard work that you've put in Galamsey fight, because it has really yielded results. Mr. President, my question, and I want to refer to the question on Ghana Beyond Aid. Because we don't know, or we don't have a vision of where Ghana wants to be in the long term, when policies are introduced by political parties, a lot of questions are raised about them. All the sectors have their own plans, but we don't have a vision as to where they rise to. The US president have made very derogatory comments about us. People were up in arms, but I must say it's rather a painful truth because of the way we do our things. Mr. President, the question I want to ask is, when are we having a national plan? Thank you.
All right, so those, according to the Media Foundation for West Africa, are their worst questions. We're joined on the line by Senior Lecturer at the Communication Department of the University of Education, Winneba, Dr. Andy Ofori-Birikran. Sir, thank you very much for your time here on the Pulse. Now, let me find out from you what your initial assessment of the media encounter yesterday is.
Thank you very much, and good afternoon to your viewers. Let me say that the forum itself was well organized. A lot of vital issues were raised. Of course, I was not so much enthused with the number of journalists who are gathered there, because the more journalists and the more newsmen you have there, then the less the chance for each person to ask a question. So you will see that the forum has been brought in to include a lot of people, but in terms of getting quality questions, then you reduce the chance of getting quality questions. And for that matter, that is why I agree with the assessment that has come out, because the more journalists you have, the less the chances for quality journalists, let me use the word with some sense of restraint, questions become a bit difficult. But I like the rapport that happened. I think that the president was able to answer most of the questions eloquently. The kind of people who gathered there in terms of journalists, we saw those who lived to their expectations and those who were not able to live up to it. But generally, it was well organized, and I love it.
Right. You just mentioned the quality of questions. That's one of the heart, actually the crust of our discussion here. Is there any such thing as a question that's stupid or as a question that's worse?
Right. Whether a question is worth it or good or bad, I don't want to use the word stupid. Depends on the context in which you're looking at it. Now, let me indicate that the presidential encounter with the media, is the only forum in our society, and it comes once in a year, in which the president can be questioned. And if he doesn't answer the question, then there's no accountability. So it's a forum for accountability. Therefore, when the media gather there, we expect that the best outcome we can hope for is that there are better questions, there are good questions, and these questions will help the media themselves and the public to focus on the vital issues of the day. Okay. And I want to stress the expression vital issues of the day, so that after the president has provided his responses, however minimal those responses meet our expectations, the media can go back and then present their report on the encounter as consequential news in a well-researched manner, full of facts and context. These are basic things. Therefore, if we want to say a question is good or bad, once we must understand that you have been given opportunity once in a year, at the minimum, right, to ask the president a question, and two, your question gives the public and you, the media, the opportunity to let the president respond to questions that under more circumstances he wouldn't have responded to. And then based on that, you can produce. So as you are producing these news story based on the encounter, and we expect that the news story that you produce will be full of facts and context based on the question that we asked. Based on that, you can say a question is good or bad. Are they allowing us to respond to focus on vital issues of the day? If the question do not allow us to focus on vital issues of the day, how are they relevant to we, the public? So on that basis, you can determine whether or you can conclude that a question is good or bad.
But when it comes to the vital issues, isn't it a matter of subjectivity? Because for you to say, for example, someone asked the question about what happened with the election petition, for example. Isn't the person if the person sees something vital there, on what basis would you fault him that the question isn't as good as you expected it to be?
Okay, now you see the element of subjectivity when you have such a unique encounter is somehow subdued to some extent.
Okay.
Because one, we accept that journalists have been invited to the medium because they have been trained to ask questions, relevant questions, on behalf of all of us who will not, under normal circumstances, get the opportunity to be there, but who nevertheless have interacted with you guys in the media for over a long period, that you know what concerns us, you know what worries us, you know that if we had the opportunity to meet the president, these are the questions that you ask. Now, I've listened to multi-news, JoyNews story. I've been listening to other media stations. I don't remember in the last year any media, any news story since the coming of the new government, the president of the Republic, going back to the petition and talking about it. When did it happen? I don't remember. Maybe it has happened somewhere on a forum or on a talk show. But so if you look at it, but I remember issues about energy, issues about price of food, issues about where the economy is going, issues about high school, issues about university education. These are vital issues that we talk about. So when you say that it's based on subjectivity, whose level or whose idea of subjectivity? Because you, the media, you mirror our ideas. You mirror what you have. So we asking that question doesn't mirror what the people wanted to. If they had a chance, they will ask, how does it help the people? Is that a vital issue for the society? Okay. Once it's not a vital issue for us to discuss, and we're giving the opportunity to go there, because when they were invited, the president invited them thinking that they are a reflection of what the society wants to ask them. And therefore, come and ask me what society, even though they are not parliamentarians. But you media men, you stand between the president and the public. You take the information from us, you send it to them, they give you feedback, and you give it a feedback. So were those issues some of the issues that the public had already directed to you? No. So on that basis, you can say that that question is not vital. It's not focused on a vital issue in the society, and therefore the element of subjectivity is subdued totally.
Okay. Interesting. So in this, so you're saying that in the context, for example, of meeting the president, which happens, which rarely happens, there actually could be a stupid question.
It could be what? Sorry?
There actually could be a question that's branded stupid, or a stupid question.
Yeah, it could be. Now, okay. let me also make this explanation. You see, we have to also understand what media encounters are. Traditionally, all over the world. Now, when we have a media encounter, now what presidents do with media encounters is that a PR, it's a PR gimmick. And therefore, you don't expect that the president will come there with the idea of being pushed to the wall so that he can respond to it.
Okay.
Now, it becomes a very important thing for covering the Flag House or any government. But they are not inducement to deliberation, because what they focus on is that, okay, we have the opportunity to meet these men of the media, and that opportunity will give us access to showcase sound bites that tell us what we are doing best or better. So when we go there with the idea that, oh, we are going to have a useful deliberation. It is a stage for the government to sell its idea. That is why they come with a pre-planned statement. Because if you want to have a press encounter, you can just go and sit down and say, okay, let's have the encounter. So if you want the presidency to be revealed to you as journalists, if you want the president to reveal himself, it is not through this kind of press. It is a typical one-on-one interview, especially one that is longer and in which the interviewer or the interviewer is prepared, is smart, and is courageous. Those are the things that reveal presidencies and presidents. The one that you have do not, because they are made to deflect tough questions, and they are pre-planned so that they will carry the message that they want.
Okay.
At the end of the day, we can only assess it for its rhetorical purposes, because none of the responses that were given there have not been given earlier in public by a minister or a minister of information. All the responses are there in the public domain. So you can see the extent of it. That is why asking whether a question is good or bad is relevant, but at the end of the day, it doesn't even go into the heart of the matter because it's just a presidential encounter.
Right. Okay, so I will say a very big thanks to you for your time here on The Pulse. Dr. Andy Birikwang is a senior lecturer at the University of Education, Winneba. Well, away from that, we've also been speaking to some of the journalists who were present yesterday. Well, beyond taking selfies, we've been talking to them as to what they think about the overall performance.
What do you make of the encounter?
Well, I think most questions that are actually trending or many people want to know were not really put across. So you realize that most of the questions were surrounding things that I don't think majority of people want to, know. But if you look at some of the questions which were important, like questions to do with security, questions to do with the economic property, taxes, etc., I think the reaction from, or the answer from the president was a bit general. With these things, you want definite responses. I think what we're looking for as journalists is the definite responses so we can hold them accountable. And I'm not sure I really saw that from the answers we got. We're hoping that the next encounter, which will be in 6 months, the questions will be much stronger. The answers will be much definite and stronger so we can have a better discourse for...
If you have to rate ourselves on a scale of 0 to 10, where 0 means terrible performance, 10 means excellent, where would you place us? Yes, as journalists?
I think majority of the questions for me were not punchy. So I would say about 4.5, 5.
To ask a journalist to assess his colleagues or himself.
Assess yourself. I mean, assess ourselves. Well, happy with the way we perform, the questions we ask, the way we frame.
When I'm asked this question, the question I want to ask is, where do you come from? And what are the priorities of that area? And so if I come from an area where our priority is the gutter in front of our chief's palace, you cannot compare that to somebody from Accra whose priority is the decongestion of the city in Accra. So it will be unfair to compare journalists and the questions they asked because they are coming from different backgrounds.
What about the president's own answers to the questions?
I think they were satisfactory enough. I can talk for my own question. I thought that it was important, given the fact that in the last couple of days, what has trended...
Happy with the answer he gave you, because that was very specific. But he didn't appear to have given you a very specific answer.
Well, I wasn't looking for a specific answer. I was just looking for him to tell the nation that the government knows about such threats and that the government is working towards whatever it is to salvage the situation, and that he said, and so I was satisfied.
I don't think so, because I don't know, I think there's a certain fear that grips some of our colleagues when they come here, because the sort of questions that we ask before we come here, when I listen to you on Joy, ask all the hard, the hard, tough questions. When we come here, it's like, I don't know if it's the feeling that I don't want to be victimized, or I don't know, but we don't ask the sort of tough questions that we usually ask when we're on radio or TV or wherever we find ourselves. So it's very difficult to understand what's happening. But with the issue of assessing ourselves, I sometimes have a bit of a difficulty because we're brethren and we don't want to find ourselves in the situations where we're being overly critical of ourselves. But Charlie, trust me, the quality of the questions could have been way, way better.
We need to learn how to strip questions of unnecessary commentary and just go for the facts. I mean, look, it's true that the format has problems, right? The format itself is inherently flawed, but still, if you have 50 or so journalists, you have an hour and a half, you should be able to put questions that resonate, that will make the man think on his feet, that will make him You know, because the purpose of this is not just to give an account. He's supposed to think deeply about what he's doing. So it's not just, come and just answer questions in any way to go. I think we didn't do a collectively good job. I honestly didn't think we did.
By extension, how did the president do?
I mean, if you didn't ask him deep questions, well, how will he do? He did what he's supposed to do. It's not about himself, but us.